Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Ungifted. When we left off, we've met now a couple of characters, a couple of students in the new school. One of them is Chloe Garfinkel, and she's quite smart. Donovan's making an impression already. He got them to name a robot they didn't want to name. So we are starting off Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is called Unknowing, and it's on page 46. Unknowing, Donovan Curtis, IQ 112. When the paper airplane bounces off the back of the driver's head, the man pulls the bus over onto the shoulder. He got out of his seat, picked up the offending aircraft, and waved it at us. Honestly, it wasn't me. The last thing I wanted to do at the academy was draw attention to myself, but I was so used to getting blamed for stuff that I braced myself for the onslaught. Interesting experiment, the driver said in an approving tone. The air moves with the bus, so the plane flies normally. An open window would interfere with that. The more open windows, the greater the interference. And if the bus had no roof, the plane would be half a mile behind us. Whoa, even the academy bus drivers were gifted. If you chuck a paper airplane at someone, they assume you did it for science. On my old bus, the driver would have held us all hostage until we gave up the person who did it. Probably me. And you can bet that interesting experiment wouldn't have been what he called it, mutiny maybe, or armed insurrection. There was a smattering of applause as a seventh grader, flushed with triumph, reclaimed his plane, and we were on their way again. Soon we arrived at the Academy for Scholastic Distinction, which looked absolutely nothing like a school, if you ask me. Every inch of the place was covered with solar panels. On sunny days, it was like pulling up to a jewel-encrusted palace. Supposedly, the students had worked with the architects who designed it. The academy was 100% eco-friendly, right down to the bathrooms, where the toilets had different flush settings, depending on the kind of waste you were getting rid of. There was no button for cherry bomb, which is what the other teachers invested a lot of energy preparing for at my old school. Mr. Del Rio, the principal, stood outside with the automatic sliding doors, greeting his students with handshakes. At Hardcastle Middle, you never saw the principal unless you did something wrong, which in my case was fairly often. Mom always used to say Donnie gets a lot of personal attention at the very highest level at that school. She was so proud that I was at the academy now. I felt a pang of guilt for the bogus reason behind it. Determination surged through me. Maybe I could hack it here. After all, half of being gifted was just the fact that everybody expected you to be smart. Like that seventh grader on the bus. No way was that any experiment. The guy made a paper airplane and he couldn't resist flying it. Well, couldn't resist was practically my middle name. I wasn't that different from the academy kids. Obviously, I was never going to star at this place, but with hard work, a little bit of luck, and a lot of good acting, I might just be able to fake it. If x represents the vector of variables, b and c are vectors of known coefficients, and a is a matrix of coefficients, determine the maximum value of the object function ctx. I stared at the problem until my liquefied eyeballs were about to drip out of their sockets and roll down my cheeks. All around the math room, my classmates were working away, calculating and figuring. It went without saying that I couldn't do it. Man, I couldn't even read it. In the next row, Noah Euclid was scribbling away like it was the easiest thing in the world. The kid really was gifted, although anybody who looked like Noah and wasn't gifted would have a genuine complaint. Picture a 4'11" praying mantis suffering from extreme malnutrition with a long nose and glasses that were last in style when President Truman wore them. As he plowed methodically through the page, I couldn't help noticing what a dark pencil he was using. The numbers really stood out against the bright white of the worksheet. Another thing about me, I've been blessed with excellent peripheral vision. Well, what was I supposed to do? Sit there while the period ticked away? According to Ancestry.com, my great-great-great-uncle was a spotter during World War I. He floated over the battlefield in a hot air balloon and peered down into the German trenches. It didn't explain much to me since he never tried to bungee jump out of the basket, but it was probably why it was so easy for me to copy answers off of Noah's paper. I tried to get a few wrong, which was actually pretty tricky. I understood so little that it was impossible to know what a reasonable mistake might be. Even cheating was harder in this place. Noah scrambled up on scrawny legs and handed his paper to Mrs. Belacqua. I'm done. She glanced at it and then handed it back without so much as notation. All right, Noah, do it properly this time. The praying mantis hunched a little farther forward. I'm working to the best of my ability. It's not my fault this math is too hard. I'll never get it right. His lower lip quivered. The teacher nodded understandingly. Poor you. It isn't easy to master calculus in middle school. This isn't calculus, it's linear programming, Noah blurted. Everyone knows that. Right, she said triumphantly, including you. She motioned him back towards his seat. He looked bummed at getting caught, but he couldn't have been half as bummed as I was. In a class full of geniuses, I had copied from the guy who got it wrong on purpose. Luckily, there were plenty of fish in the sea. I leaned a little closer to Abigail Lee, who was motoring through the assignment at almost Noah's speed. I remembered her from elementary school, where she had been all universe at anything that took brains. Her writing wasn't as clear, but beggars can't be choosers. At least I had reasonable belief that she wasn't trying to fail. What was up with this Noah kid? I couldn't imagine. Hey, Abigail hunched over, blocking my view of your paper. What do you think you're doing? I played dumb. What? I covered my worksheet like I was preventing her from copying from me. Mrs. Belacqua, she bawled. Donovan's cheating. Chill out, I tried to hiss. I'm not going to chill out. If we have the same answers, we'll both get 0. I've never had a 0 in my life. I can't get a 0. I worked too hard to get a 0. What am I going to tell my tutors if I get a 0? She was red in the face, heading towards purple. Noah seemed genuinely bewildered. Well, if you're looking for the right answers, he asked, why don't you just calculate them? Big talk from the freak who went out of his way to put down the wrong ones, I retorted. That got Chloe's back up. Watch who you're calling freak, you troglodyte. Yeah, I spat back. Well, I don't know what that is. So trog whatever to you too. Then this girl, JC, who said random things at moments of stress, announced, in Brazil, more cars run on ethanol than regular gas. It had the effect of a referee whistle, separating the combatants from their clinch. I learned a few things in that class. First, the regular student code about not writing people out, that didn't apply at the academy. Second, nobody knew how to deal with cheating because it never happened. No one needed to do it. And third, 0 is a 4-letter word. Amazingly, I didn't really get in trouble, although it was pretty obvious who was copying from whom. I wasn't sent to the office, there was no detention, nobody even yelled at me, which was a first in my educational experience. Instead, my homeroom teacher, Mr. Osborne, came and suggested we take a walk. At Hardcastle Middle, if you're caught off campus during school hours, they've practically got guard towers to run you down. I was beginning to see that they had 2 sets of rules in our district, one for brainiacs and one for everybody else. Of course, I was living the good life now, but I took it personally since I knew it was all a mistake. We'll pause there.